There you go.
Okay. Technology. Okay. All right. Thank you for letting me come. And I feel like I know most of you guys already. Can you hear me if I kind of don't stand directly behind? Yeah. Okay. I feel like I know most of you all already. Miss Debbie knows my dog very, very well. And some of you know my dog as well as well. But I didn't bring him tonight because I had a doctor's appointment this afternoon, and they don't let you bring a dog to a doctor's appointment. So, but I am excited to be here because I'm going to talk about Hasidic Judaism 101. And because I used to be a professor, I wanted to outline for you what we're going to talk about. And so I have it outlined into 5 points, not 3 points in a poem because I am not a preacher, but the brief and incomplete history of Judaism, the impact of the Holocaust, because there is a significant impact that the Holocaust has had on the Hasidic people, the Hasidic sects, including the Chabad versus all the other groups, and I'll explain that. Hasidic women, the children, and the lack of education, and some difficult and different theological issues we need to understand as Christians that the Hasidic Jewish people have. So those are the 5 different things, and I'm going to try to do that in 40 minutes. We'll see. So let me just kind of deal with that in the brief and incomplete history of Hasidicism or the Hasidic people. And and by the way, most of these pictures are from around here, just so you'll know. So the timeline starts in the 1700. Thankfully, he was born in 1700, maybe 1698, but we're just going to start with 1700. And by the way, I know there's some grammar issues on this slide. I found them this afternoon after I sent them to Pastor John. I've already fixed it for future presentations. But a man by the name of Israel Bel Shem Tov, we just call him Bel Shem Tov, was born in the city of Okup, which is near the Turkish border. And he is the founder of what we call Hasidicism, or of Hasidim. And basically, he was an itinerant rabbi, and what he found was that the Jewish people in Orthodox Judaism, and just so you'll know, when he was born, there was just one kind of Judaism. And it is what we call today Orthodox Judaism. There wasn't Reform Judaism, there wasn't Conservative Judaism, there wasn't Reconstructionist Judaism. It was just what we call today Reform Judaism. But what he saw in Judaism when he was there was everybody just went to synagogue. They went, they sat, and there was no joy in Judaism. And so he wanted to find the joy in Judaism. And Haredi, which is another way of saying Hasidim, is finding that joy in Judaism. So he wanted people to enjoy Judaism. Now you're looking around, if you look around at your communities, you're thinking, wait a minute, I don't see a lot of joy in my communities. And we'll talk about that. But he wanted the people to find joy. And if you've ever seen videos of the Haredi or the Hasidic, and Haredi and Hasidic are 2 interchangeable words, and you've seen the men dancing and bouncing and dancing and doing all the things that you've seen, that's the idea of the joy of Judaism. And this is one of my typos, the Bel Shem Tov died in 1760, but he was an itinerant rabbi and he traveled around and his teaching spread throughout Eastern Europe. But as I told you, he was at odds with traditional Judaism. And one of the leaders of the traditional Jewish teachings was a man by the name of the Vilna Gaon. And so those who wanted to keep Judaism proper said, you can't be that way. We're going to kick you out. And his teaching, his followers were like, we're just happy. We want to dance. We want to sing. There's no singing in Judaism. So there was this big battle between the followers of the Baal Shem Tov and the followers of the Vilna Gaon. And so they divided. So that's why you have Hasidic Judaism, and that's why you have the modern Orthodox Judaism of today. So if you ever grew up Baptist like I did, and Baptists love to split, that's why you have, by the way, there's 42 different kinds of Baptists. So they split. And so in the 1800s, the Hasidicism and the rabbis from those different towns, and that's why you have the Satmars, that's why you have the Chabad, that's why you have the Vishnis. The rabbis from the Baal Shem Tov, they became the rabbis, I hope this makes sense. The rabbis who came to the town of Lubavitch, which is in Western Russia, which is in the Ukraine. You know, he founded a sect in that town of Lubavitch, and so that became the Lubavitch Jews. A rabbi came to Satmar, which is in Hungary, and that became the Satmar Jews. Another rabbi went to Bobov, which is in another part of Hungary, and that became the Bobovar Jews. And so that's why we have the different sects based on the name of the village from which they came. And so they grew and they grew and they developed their yeshivas. And that's why some of the different Hasidic Jews wear different kinds of hats. They wear their skirts differently. They have the different kinds of, some of them wear white stockings. Some of them wear different kinds of kippas or yarmulkes, just because that's how they grew up in their village. And by the way, it is important to know if some of them wear their payos, their curls, in front of their ears, some of them wear behind their ears. Don't get that confused, and I will explain that later, because don't call somebody who's a Lubavitch a Satmar, because you'll offend them. And I'll explain that later. But they became very isolated, which was a way of growing and protecting themselves until it came time for the Nazis and the rise of fascism and the rise of nationalism. And then their isolation became their devastation. Because when they were isolated, they could grow and they could protect themselves and they could keep assimilation from happening. But when World War II happened, what happened was they were easy pickings for the Nazis, because they could round them all up, take them either to, and I don't think the younger children will understand, they could either take them to the pits that were dug outside the cities and kill them that way, or they could take them to the death camps of Auschwitz and Chelmno and Sobibor and et cetera, and kill them that way, because they were isolated and they were easy to destroy. And about between 85 and 90% of all of the Hasidic Jews of Eastern Europe were destroyed in World War II. And so the isolated survivors struggled to reassimilate in the U.S. and the Holy Land, and I'm saying the word Holy Land instead of Israel, for a very specific reason, which I'll explain in a little bit, to repopulate and find a way to protect themselves from ever being destroyed again after the war was over. Because most of the rabbis were killed in the war, except for a very few. And so they had to find a way to recreate what they had before the war. And so that is why they came to Brooklyn. That's why they've come to Western New York. And instead of assimilating with us, they have, again, what we would call a shtetl, and they live among us, but they don't live with us. Does all of that make sense?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I appreciate that absolutely, by the way. So I hope that all made sense. So the Hasidim and the Holocaust, that the impact of then and now. And I have two pictures of two different men. And one of them you've heard of because Joel Teitelbaum is all about what is happening in Monroe. But I'm going to explain a little bit of Joel Teitelbaum's history to you. Joel Teitelbaum should have been killed in the Holocaust. Joel Teitelbaum was destined for Auschwitz because in March of 1944, Hitler invaded Hungary. Now, do you know why Hitler invaded Hungary? Hungary was an ally of Hitler. So was there a reason for Hitler to invade Hungary? That's right. Say it louder for everybody else. For the Jews. Because the only thing that Hungary did not do in order to be an ally of Germany, Hungary did not give up their Jewish population. And so by 1944, everyone knew Germany was going to lose the war. There was absolutely no reason for Germany to invade Hitler. And he did this in Hungary, he did this in Romania, he did this in Bulgaria, he did this in all of Southern Eastern Europe. He invaded all of those countries for one reason and one reason only, for their Jewish population. And so he invaded Hungary for the Jews. And from March of 1944 to September of 1944, 500,000 Hungarian Jews were killed in the ovens of Auschwitz. In 6 months, 500,000 Jews, including the family of one of my dearest friends in the world. And the only reason she wasn't killed in the gas chambers of Auschwitz was because she had blue eyes and the rest of her family had brown eyes. That's the only reason she went left and they all went right. But Joel Teitelbaum was supposed to be on one of those trains to Auschwitz, but a Hungarian Jew by the name of Kastner was trying to basically pay off Eichmann and Himmler to rescue a few Hungarian Jews to send them west to basically use that money to rescue a few Hungarian Jews, and he ended up rescuing about 1,000 to basically use those Hungarian Jews to basically barter them for German POWs. One of them was Joel Teitelbaum. That's why Joel Teitelbaum and his wife were not killed in the Holocaust. Now, Joel Teitelbaum will not tell you he was rescued by Kastner. He will say God rescued him. And every year on December 4th, we just passed the anniversary, all of the Satmar Jews will celebrate the rescue of Joel Teitelbaum by God. Because that was the day he was rescued. Now, he came to America. He established the Satmars in Brooklyn, and he realized that there was too much opportunity for assimilation. And I need to go fast because I need to look at my clock. Yeah, I need to go fast. And so he said, well, we need to spread out because we need to create a place where the Satmars will not be open to assimilation. And so that is why that's why Curious Joel was created. Because he wanted to protect the Satmar Jews from the opportunity to be assimilated. Now we have Menachem Schneerson. He was the 6th Rebbe of the Lubavitch Jews. He was also rescued in the Holocaust a little bit earlier than Joel Teitelbaum. And the Lubavitch Jews are completely different. They are open to everybody. They're the ones who send out emissaries. Shliachs is the word. And he wants all of the Jews around the world. They're basically the missionary Jews. He wants everybody to be a Jew. He would like for you all to become Jewish if you wanted to be. They're the missionary Jews. And I was on a plane once where they gave me $1 when I was going to Israel to do a good deed. Because if all the Jewish people in the world will observe Sabbath correctly one time, the Messiah will come. That is what they believe. So we have the isolationist, we have the Chabad Lubavitch, who wants everybody to know about the Messiah. That is the experience of the Hasidic Jews. By the way, out of all of the sects of the Jews, the Lubavitch are the only ones who want to share the Messiah with the world. All the other sects are just like Joel Teitelbaum. But what they all have in common is they have one goal. The children are named after those who died in the Holocaust, and they want to replace and repopulate those who died. So if you've ever wondered, why do the Hasidic have so many children? They have to replace and repopulate those who died in the Holocaust. So can you imagine the emotional, psychological, sociological pressure it would be for a Hasidic person to go home and tell their family, I became a Christian. I became a believer in Jesus. You know what they're told? You're finishing what Hitler started. That is the emotional, spiritual, psychological baggage to leave. And that's why most people don't. So you have the Hasidic sects. So in this area, we have basically 6. By the way, there's about 30 different sects of Hasidim. But we have in this area, we have about 6. And I've met people from all 6 sects. We have the Vishnis. The Vishnis live mostly in Sullivan County, where I've moved to. We have the Breslov. By the way, when I was living in Mountain Lodge, my landlord was a Breslov. We have the Bobover, we have the Satmar, we have the Chabad, and we have the Bells. And those are the ones who live mostly in Orange County and Sullivan County. Do not confuse a Satmar with a Chabad, because that would be like confusing an Italian with an Irish. Yeah, see? It would be like asking John if he was going to root for Ohio State. It would be asking me if I was going to root for the Yankees. If you know, by the way, the Rangers won the World Series, just so you'll know. And yes, I shouted. And it'd be like asking a Mets fan if they like the Yankees, okay? or a Cowboys fan if they were going to root for the Steelers or the Eagles. Okay. See, okay. you get the idea. And so that's why I mentioned the kabod or the Lubavitch, they're interchangeable terms. The men will wear their side curls behind their ears. Whereas the Satmars wear their side curls in front of their ears. Don't confuse the two. The women who are Satmars shave their heads and wear a scarf over their heads. The kabod the women will shave their heads but are allowed to wear a wig. Don't confuse the two. A Satmar woman has to wear dark stockings with a seam up the back. Kabod women do not have to. They just have to wear pantyhose. You have to know the difference in order to build a relationship with them. And I know that sounds confusing, but it's important to know because you have to know who they're talking to because you need to know who their rabbi are or their rebbe is. And I know I need to hurry up, John. And let me give you another example. This is a billboard, and if you go towards Sullivan County, if you're coming from Sullivan County back towards Orange County, this is a billboard that you can see, and I'll forgive you, Mark.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
And this is a billboard, and that you can see. And it says it can be as easy as a click of a button, but it is against the Torah to join the World Zionist Organization. What do you think that means?
Sounds like I'm not in favor of the state of Israel.
You are right, Mark. I'll see you redeemed yourself. The only sect that is in favor of the nation of Israel is the kabod, the Lubavitch. The other, and that's why I wrote the word Holy Land instead of Israel earlier. The Satmars are very much against the modern establishment of the state of Israel.
What's the one in favor again?
The Lubavitch. Or the kabod, that's easier to spell. And the reason being, and this everybody else agrees with the Satmars, basically, on different degrees of agreement. Some are, yeah. And the reason being is that only the Messiah can establish Israel. And who established Israel in 48 or after the war? They were the Zionists, and most of the Zionists did not believe in God, or they were socialist. And this is true. They were socialist, they were Zionist, they were borderline communist. If you understand the kibbutz system, that's true. And they did not, and so they believe only Messiah can establish the Israel. So they're still waiting. They will call it the Holy Land. They will go to the Holy Land, but they're not going to Israel. They are going to the Holy Land. And so they will go, they will visit, and you're saying, well, I know a lot of Hasidic people live in Israel, and they do. They will live in Israel. They will not fight for Israel. They will live in Israel. They will live in the Holy Land. They will take government money from Israel. I was waiting for somebody, and but the reason they will do that is because they will say it's owed to us, because we are protecting Israel because we are studying the Torah. We are the spiritual defense that protects the Holy Land from the infidels. And And so you can imagine right now, especially as Israel is fighting the Hamas and they're needing soldiers, does that create animosity between the Israelis and, well, I got to say this right, the Israelis and those who are not fighting? Oh, you bet it does. And it's 80% of the Israeli population versus the 20% who are Hasidic who will not fight. But they're waiting for the Messiah. They don't realize the Messiah has already come. And that's something we have to pray about, because we have to share the truth of who Messiah is, but we have to know how. By the way, if you're seeing the word chas v'shalom, I looked that up to make sure I could say that correctly, by the way. It means heaven forbid that we should ever vote for the World Zionist Organization. So, and if I'm going too fast, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to be aware of my time. So what does that mean for the women and the children and the lack of education? So I have a picture, and I took this in Curious Joel. I had my phone mounted, and this was just a perfect opportunity to take this picture. How many children do you think you see? Take a guess. It's 30. It's 30. There's one adult male. He's an outlier. He's just waiting for a bus. There's 30 children, because I did count. How many mothers do you think you see? 4. Split the difference. You see 4. Because what is the average number of children that a Hasidic household has? 8 or 9. Between 8 and 14. Yeah. Yeah. You're not looking excited about that. Y'all had 1, right? You had 1. Between, how many did you have, Bar? 2. Was that enough? Okay. So a Hasidic woman is responsible for having the children, caring for the children, providing for the children, because most of the time they also have to have the jobs as well. Because unless the husband has another job besides going to yeshiva, it falls to the woman to also have the job to provide financially for the children. That's a lot of responsibility on the woman as well.
Isn't there something about their marriage that's different?
It's an arranged marriage. And usually, depending upon the sect, usually on their wedding day is the second or third time they've met each other. The first or second date is they become engaged, and the next time they meet is their wedding date. So.
But isn't there some other nature of the definition of their marriage that qualifies them for welfare?
It does.
That we don't enjoy as others.
In Curious Joel, they have 2. If somebody wanted to get a divorce, can we save that question for the Q&A time? Save that question, because it's an important question. Because I don't want save that question. So let's talk about the lack of education. According to the New York Times, in 2019, and this is the boys, this is not the girls, 99% of Hasidic schoolboys grade 3 to 8, and I know the education is not great anywhere in New York State, I know that, but 99% of Hasidic schoolboys failed a basic reading and math test. And only 60 to 90 minutes is devoted to secular education, which is reading, writing, arithmetic, and history and science combined. And school starts at 7:30, ends around 5:30. And they have to cover reading, writing, arithmetic, history, and science in that 90 minutes. The rest of the time is devoted to Torah study. And what I mean by Torah study is studying the Talmud, the Gemara, and it is said, and I'm going to hopefully, do we have time still, John? Okay. Because I want you to see this video. Hold on.
I can read and write. I taught myself.
It wasn't a boast, just a very sad statement of fact. Ari Herskowitz telling me about the poor secular education he received at a Hasidic yeshiva in Williamsburg, Brooklyn.
I left school when I was 18, after I was 18, and I do not have a high school diploma or even the knowledge that a high school diploma comes with.
Herskowitz decided to pursue a more secular lifestyle. He wants a master's degree in computers, but because his yeshiva did not comply with the state requirement that non-public schools provide an education substantially equivalent to public schools, he now, at age 20, has to get a high school equivalency degree before he can even think about college.
I am very angry with the people who could have changed it years ago but didn't.
But we need the school system to look entirely different in the coming years. That is the mission I will be most focused on. That will be the issue I put my greatest passion and energy into.
Among those who could have changed things, Mayor de Blasio, the man who says he has a passion for education, and schools chancellor Carmen Farina. Over 2 years ago, a group called Young Advocates for Fair Education filed a complaint with the city, charging that at least 39 yeshivas did not meet the bare minimum teaching requirements for English, math, and other state-mandated subjects, even though they received tens of millions of taxpayer dollars. Naftali Moster, executive director of the group, is also a victim of poor secular education.
In elementary school and some middle school, we received approximately 90 minutes of secular education. In high school, we got no secular education at all.
The negative attitude towards secular education dramatically depicted in the documentary One of Us. A Hasidic mother showing her second grade son's workbook. All the pictures of girls are blocked out.
How did my son circle this answer? Sally trips. How did he know which was which?
Moster says he doesn't understand Mayor de Blasio's reluctance to enforce the law.
Every other law is being enforced, right? Speed limits are enforced. Car seats, seat belts, everything is being enforced. There's really no reason why this particular law is not being enforced.
Actually, there is one possible reason: politics. Until a few weeks ago, the mayor was facing re-election, loath to offend voters in the Hasidic community, many of whom defend the status quo. But the real question is why the Department of Education has failed to act. I demanded answers and found out that the agency has done startlingly little in finding out what's going on in the yeshivas.
We've visited 6 schools in the last 2 years, correct?
And is that, it doesn't seem like that's really aggressive. It's like not even like one a month.
It takes time to go in and get the story.
When are you going to do something?
We are doing something. We're investigating the matter.
But no action has been taken. In the meantime, more and more kids are going without an education.
We are fully investigating the matter. We take this seriously, and our investigation is aggressive.
And even though the agency says 6 schools have been visited, no classroom changes.
Okay, that's the rest. She's just talking. By the way, I know Ari. He's an acquaintance friend of mine. And most Hasidic young men are not taught English until they turn about 18 because they don't need to know it. Most of the time when they get married, and I've seen this at Home Depot, their wives translate for them. Now, there are exceptions. I know there are exceptions. But the lack of education keeps them perpetually in the cycle of never being able to leave. Because if you can't leave, because then you're always stuck. The girls learn English, they learn writing, they learn the basic skills because they are the ones who will go and get the job. By the way, do you know where most of the Hasidic women work in Orange County? Amazon. So here are some difficult terms they have. These are some difficult issues. When we say the word like faith from a Christian perspective, we talk about faith. We have faith in God. We have faith in Jesus. We have faith and we know what we mean by faith, but if you said the word faith to a Hasidic person, their understanding of faith is don't ask questions, just believe. Faith is not asking questions because they're not allowed to ask questions. Salvation is earned through the following of the minutiae of the oral law. And you're saying, what's the oral law? The oral law is the Talmud, is the Gemara, is the Mishnah, is everything but this. You know, they follow the Torah, but they don't necessarily follow the Torah. You know, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. They follow what the Talmud and the Gemara, the Mishnah, those are the commentaries, say about the Torah. And the community, which is a wonderful concept, all of life revolves and depends on each other. And that's a beautiful concept. By the way, that is what the Christian community, that's what the church, the ecclesia should be about. And that is what we should be about. Except it's not a good thing when it becomes exclusive of all other things. And then Kabbalah, it's not about Madonna and the red string and the mysticism, you know, what we think of. Kabbalah is a Jewish mysticism because they have the Gemara, the Talmud, the Mishnah, and all of that. But they also add another book called the Zohar that was written in 1280, which is mysticism that also allows for reincarnation. And they think you get 4 chances to get it right. So if you don't get it right this time, then you get 3 more chances. Now, y'all didn't know that, did you?
Is that all Hasidic?
Yes. And they believe that God is and that you can ultimately achieve and become part of the Ein Sof and become a part of God's radical transcendence. God is not transcendent, God is immanent. And I know those are fancy theological terms, but we cannot become like God because God is other. We can only ask God to become in us. There's a vast difference to that theological idea. And then, obviously, the big theological issue is the word Jesus. And his name in Yiddish is Yoshki. And some people will not say it because it's a pejorative, or they'll say it as a pejorative. And the Talmudic notations most of them have been excised because they're not very nice. But they have been taught all sorts of things, including Jesus is illegitimate and all those sorts of ideas. But Jesus' name will not be spoken. Jesus' name will not be spoken due to the anti-Semitism they experienced throughout history and the fact that they're afraid to say Jesus' name at all. So how do we share Jesus if we can't say his name? That's the hard part. A few months ago, I was in the exercise place by Dunkin' Donuts on up by the ponds, and I found a way around it. I said something about Jesus without saying Jesus' name as it related to not hurting children. So sometimes you have to go in and around and about and over and under, and that's how we have to do it. But they're afraid to say his name because it's almost become something that has hurt them throughout history. So sometimes we have to go all the way around to get to Jesus. So, because 99%, think about this, in our area, 99.5% of the Hasidic people will never hear a clear gospel presentation in their life. And they are the fastest growing group of Jewish people in the world because of the birth rate. they have more children than the rest of the Jewish people. And most Hasidic people face more anti-Semitism than other Jewish groups because they are the most overtly looking Jewish. By the way, that's the reason they're moving out of Brooklyn and moving this way. And if a Hasidic person leaves their group, most of them have been told, if you leave us, you're going to become a drug addict, a drunk, an atheist. And it's like self-fulfilling prophecy because they think they have no other choice, because they sure can't believe in you know who. And the last time I talked to Ari, we had dinner together, and I said, can I tell you about Jesus? Can I tell you what hope is? And we talked about hope. We talked about what real faith was. And he says, I've never heard of those words the way you talk about them. And we had a conversation. And there's a woman, I didn't bring a video of her tonight. And when my mom died, and when I was sharing with her, and she's left the community, and she's now an atheist too. And I shared with her about that I was, I missed my mom, but I knew I would see her again, and that was my hope. And she goes, I wish I could have the hope you have. And I says, well, there's a verse in 1 Thessalonians that says we grieve, but we grieve with hope. And she goes, I wish I knew what hope was like you do. So there's a way to get to Jesus without bashing them over the head the way so-called Christians have done throughout the years. But first, we have to earn the right to talk to them. And that takes friendship, that takes relationship, and that takes time. And my question to you is, are you willing to do it? Because they're here, and they're not stopping from coming. John?
Back this up. There we go.
And he's left, and he had the question.
He's coming back, don't worry.
Okay.
So I asked Amy if she wanted the little fancy microphone so she could walk around. And you're like, no, I don't like those.
I don't. They make me feel like Garth Brooks.
Well, if you want this one, you got to stay in front of it.
Okay.
That's okay.
They heard
No,
me.
I know that. I'm teasing you because I have nothing else better to do.
Okay.
So, because I have the microphone, I get to ask my questions first.
Okay.
So, and yes, for those who are maybe having a minor panic attack, this might be the only time you see me wear a hat on stage up here. So don't worry, this is not a habit. That's going to happen on Sunday mornings. I guess the first question I have when it comes to trying to support 9 to 14 kids per house, and if the boys aren't educated the way they should, what do they do for work to get the money to buy those big houses? I'm confused. So talk about like what is the average career? Like what do they do? Because they don't go to secular college to learn a trade or anything. So if you could flesh that out.
And I think this is related to what's your name, sir?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Oh, Chip.
Hi, Chip. I think this is related to Chip's question. And I'm going to say this as tactfully as I can because I don't want this to come across wrong. In Curious Joel, for example, there are a few wealthy families, and this is primarily true in a lot of in the groups, or in the towns, or in the villages. There are a few wealthy families that provide for the rest of the families. And they're very good, and this is a good thing, at providing for those who are less fortunate. And we should do that as well. Mm-hmm. And so one of the main career opportunities for those who are not yeshiva boy-minded, and there's a Yiddish term called yeshiva bocher, and that is real estate, as you've all noticed. But real estate and And so, so those who are not going to yeshiva often get into real estate, and that also gives them time to go to yeshiva. So, but that means that they have to learn English. Those who are going to yeshiva do not have to learn English. So you have those who go into real estate, those who go into grocery stores, those who go into the trade like a grocery store. I know of a young man, I don't want to say his name in case somebody knows him, who has 11 children, but he is the kosher butcher for Kiryas Joel. So basically, he provides all the kosher meat. He's one of the two kosher butchers for Kiryas Joel.
And depending on the sect, women can work or not work, because then some of them aren't allowed to drive, correct? So
none of them are allowed to drive.
So then how do they get to their job if they're allowed to work?
Some of them become Uber. Some of the men become Uber drivers. So and that allows some of the ones that are Uber drivers then can go to yeshiva too. So you see a lot of the, is it Burger or Borger? Burger cab services. That's a Kiryas Joel company.
Okay.
So
now I'll open up to you guys. Again, if you have a question, just raise your hand. I'll repeat it for the recording.
I'm going to let Barbara go first, then I'll answer your question, and then you on the back, okay? We'll come back to you, okay? Yeah.
I understand they try to keep them uneducated, keep them from leaving.
Yeah.
But doesn't anybody realize they're doing themselves?
Those are the ones who leave.
And why can't men work at Amazon? Why are they sending the women to work? Why can't
some of the men do work at Amazon, but they keep them separate. They work in separate areas. They cannot work in the same area. The women will work clerical jobs, and some of the men will work the muscly jobs. I know it's muscle, but muscle jobs. But they cannot work in the same area. The women will work clerical jobs. Yeah. So we'll come back to you, okay? Chip, and then the lady on the back.
Yeah, so, wow, thank you. So, really appreciate being here and your presentation. What struck me was the founder, first name, Paul.
Yeah.
1700 Paul. I mean, it's just like mothers naming their children Adolf in 1945. But what I wondered was, are you aware of any connection with Hasidim in our area to the Ashkenazi Jews or the Hasidim?
The Jewish people in our area are all Ashkenazi Jews. The Sephardic Jews tend not to be Hasidic unless they choose to join and become Hasidic. So the Sephardic Jews are from the Mediterranean, Southern Europe, Italy, that area. Ashkenazi Jews are Eastern Europe. Sephardic Jews are Southern Europe, Italy, Israel, Spain, that area. It's just a geographical difference.
My understanding, and I could be wrong,
yeah.
That they're not of the Abraham lineage.
They are.
The Ashkenazi.
Yes, they are. And I understand where you get that, but they are. Because they've done a genetic testing and they are.
What do Hasidics think of other, for lack of better words, Hebrews, like ethnically Jewish, but they're not Hasidic, they're either Orthodox or what have you?
They will tolerate the modern Orthodox. They do not consider Reform Jews to be real Jews.
Or liberal Jews?
No.
Do they classify the difference between ethnic and the religion at all?
No.
Okay.
If you're Jewish, you better be Reformed. I mean, excuse me, you better be Orthodox or Hasidic.
So theoretically, because I remember you saying this in the like, technically I can become Hasidic then.
Yeah,
And some people want everyone to be Hasidic.
the Kabod or the
Chabad,
Lubavitch,
okay,
yeah.
Okay.
And you had a question, I'm sorry. They will hire other women who have just given birth to watch all the rest of them.
I'm sorry, they hired a woman who just had birth.
Yeah, who just gave birth. Who
Interesting.
can't go back to work yet.
That's too stressful. Whoosh.
Or young girls who haven't gotten married yet, but who are ready to get married. Yes, ma'am.
So the young girls that know English,
Yeah.
do they get history, math, science, chemistry?
There is an excellent video out there. They get a glossing look at American history. They will know the presidents. They will know 1776. They couldn't pass my American history test. I used to teach American history at a college. They could not, they would not know, that who Jimmy Carter's wife who just died was. They would not. I'll give you an example. And this is actually a true example. They would know that Joel Teitelbaum survived the Holocaust. They will know the basics of the Holocaust. They don't know anything beyond that much of they will know that a lot of Jewish people died in the Holocaust, but they will not understand the depth and of 6 million Jewish people died in the Holocaust, because 6 million Hasidim did not die in the Holocaust. They will know about their aspect and their perspective of the Holocaust, but they will not know they will not know who Anne Frank was, because Anne Frank was not Hasidic.
Will they know we've gone to the moon?
No. Yes, Chip.
What do you suppose their attitude is towards October 7th? Are they like,
They know something horrible happened. They will know a lot of Jewish people died, but they were not Hasidic. They were secular, they were Zionists, they lived on a kibbutz. They are sad that Jewish people died.
But they're not really Jewish.
But they're not really Jewish.
And they don't really live in the Holy Land.
And they don't really, yeah. Barbara, do you have a question before I go to? Okay, Mark.
So for a people that wants to set themselves apart from everyone around them, why are they so willing to live on the welfare of the government provided by the people around them?
You're talking about here or in Israel?
Here.
And this is related to Chip's question.
I think it is, yes. And well, okay, while you dwell on that.
No, I'm trying to think of how to say this nicely.
Okay, and if
I can turn off the recording if you want me to.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but so I've heard that so they are married religiously, but not legally by the state, which allows them to get greater welfare benefits. Is that true or is that false?
Yes and no. Some are not. And I think that's Chip's question. Some are not. It depends on the sect. And it also depends on the age of the girl when she got married. Did I say that tactfully enough? because there is a legal age when a girl can get married in New York. And some of the girls, the young women, are younger than the legal age that is allowed in New York State. Now, when they reach that age, they often go and get a civil wedding, but not always.
So what in their mindset allows them to live off the welfare of the people around them that they are so desirous to be apart from?
It seems like they're just
it's necessity.
Yeah, they're making up like, oh, the Holocaust happened to us, therefore
yeah,
this.
Well, but that was Israel.
Their version of reparations.
That's not America.
It is a sense of reparation. It's owed to us because of how much we suffered.
As in the world owes them?
Yeah.
Okay.
And a sense of desperation. I mean, you realize Kiryas Joel is the poorest city in all of New York State.
Yeah, we're not saying this makes sense.
It does, it's not logical. And then yet, some of the wealthiest people in Orange County also live in Kiryas Joel, who make up the difference. So you have this yin and yang on a physical level, which frustrates so many people in Orange County. And I understand that. I do understand that. But yet on a spiritual level, they're all lost.
You know what's strange is there's a contrast between here's the Hasidim, and there's another religious community that sort of lives in a similar fashion with Buddha.
Yeah, or the Amish.
Man, Buddha could write a book on being a good neighbor. And you know, I had bilateral hip surgery in 2014. Their community was a quarter mile from my house. We had a major snowstorm. There was no way I was going to be able to shovel the driveway. I hear this noise outside my window. I look out, there's a half a dozen of them shoveling my driveway.
And I had one of the best landlords I ever had was a Breslaver rabbi, you know, who allowed me to extend my lease in Mountain Lodge, Claudia, way beyond what I should have been allowed to. You know, it's just, I think you have to judge the individual by the individual. And that's the difficult aspect, because ultimately it's the women and children who are suffering because of the acts of a few of the adult males.
Yeah, and I don't even ask that question in a
I know.
way. I just want to understand.
I know, Mark.
What is that mindset? Because really what we in this room all should be cared about
is their eternity.
Right, and that they are lost. They are spiritually lost.
But sometimes our humanity comes up.
Sure. And it enables us to understand our neighbors who also may be lost, who have anger and frustration towards the Hasidic community.
And you realize that, you know, in Orange County, in Sullivan County, there is a growing sense of anti-Semitism. We do know that. I mean, when I lived in Mountain Lodge, you know, I got kicked off of a Facebook page because I was actually speaking nicely about some of the Hasidic people, and I got blocked off of that Facebook page. And just because I was saying, you know, we can't say that about people, and I got blocked off of the Mountain Lodge Facebook page. And I'm pointing at somebody. And I had people message me privately, that shouldn't have happened to you, I'm so sorry. But you know, but bottom line, it's the women and the children who are getting judged over the actions of a few people who are negative. By the way, that's happening right now in Gaza. that the women and the children are getting horribly, Palestinian women and children are getting blasted over the actions of a few Hamas. So it's happening there too. It's just a vicious cycle.
While you were talking, like it's like describing the negative parts of them. It's just all I kept thinking was Waco.
Yeah.
Like, would you classify this as a cult? Because it has very cult-like characteristics. You can't leave women. Okay, I did not have to convince her.
and women and children are getting hurt. Yes, Chip.
So I always thought that even locally, whether it was Churchill or out in Bloomberg, there were basically two sects.
Yeah. And the Bloomingburg sect is Satmar, just so you'll know.
They are. Right.
Yeah.
But now, this is the first time I'm hearing there's as many as however many.
6.
6 of them.
Yeah.
In Palm Tree, are all 6 represented in Palm Tree?
No, a palm tree is Satmar as well.
So the Lubavitch would seem to be more open.
Yeah.
And wanting to, where are they?
They're scattered here and there. And it's basically, I hate to say it this way because I can tell the difference by the way they're dressed. It's where are their side curls? Yeah. The five do with each other, and the Satmar do with themselves. But nobody of the five don't like the Chabad, the Lubavitch. But the Lubavitch try to get along with everybody. Yeah, yeah, liberal for lack of a better term. They're more welcoming. Yeah.
The kind of transition from the social aspect to like the evangelism aspect.
Yeah.
I remember you saying like they won't even say Jesus because Jesus equates anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
And I know for some Jewish people who've come to faith, they said, "Oh, I thought Jesus was a Jew, and then somehow Jesus became Catholic." And then that's why I didn't want nothing to do with Jesus because Jesus was Catholic.
Yeah.
And then I had to relearn everything. From your presentation, it seemed like Jesus is anti-Semitic. That's it. Like that's their only view of Christ. Like, do they understand that he was a Jew? Like anything else?
No, they don't realize Jesus was a Jew. I'll give you an example. I was at a few months ago before I got kicked out, just FYI. And it wasn't the women who kicked me out, it was the rabbi. I got kicked out of talking to them. They were warned not to talk to me.
Because you're the Bible lady.
Because I was a church lady.
Church lady, I'm sorry.
They
was that
were
an SNL skit, Church Lady? Was that? Yeah. See, I'm old.
Isn't that special? If you remember Saturday Night Live. They were warned not to talk to me or their children would not be allowed to go to school anymore. And so I'm having to figure out a new way around to get to talk to them. And but I was at the exercise place, by the Dunkin' Donuts on 17 Curves. Yeah, I just always call it the exercise place. And so I was standing there talking to them, and it was raining one day, and there was this lovely lady, and I know she liked talking to me because, she just liked talking to me. And it was raining one day, and I made the joke, if it keeps raining like this, we're going to have to call out Noah to build an ark. And she looked at me, and she said, "You believe in Noah?" And I said, "Yeah, I believe in Noah. 40 days, 40 nights, Noah, 2 of every kind." And she goes, "You know about Noah? You really believe in Noah? Noah happened, and I almost started singing that song, Noah, he built him. I almost started singing that song, and but I knew she wouldn't know that song.
She's not a Baptist.
And I said, "Yeah, I believe in Noah, Adam and Eve." She looked at me like, and I said, "I believe in Adam and Eve, 6 days, creation. I believe in a 6-day literal creation. I actually do." And I was taught that. They already knew my dad was a Baptist preacher. I was always honest with them about who I was. Never lied about who I was. And And she goes, you really believe in everything that we believe in about all of that? I said, yes. And she goes, wow, I didn't know y'all, she didn't say y'all because I'm from Texas. You all knew about all of that. I said, yeah. I said, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, that's in our Bible too. They don't know that. And a few weeks later, I was in Dunkin' eating a donut, having my chai latte, and I was doing my Bible study, and it just happened to be out of Joel. And one of the women came in to get her coffee. By the way, coffee's kosher. The Dunkin' Donuts coffee is kosher. And they came in, they said hi, and and they looked, and I had my iPad open, and they noticed I was reading out of Joel, and they went, Joel's in your Bible? They didn't know Joel was in our Bible. And I said, yeah, Joel's in our Bible, Psalms is in our Bible, and I just started naming some of the books. And they went, Psalms is in your Bible? They didn't know. I said, yeah, all 39 books of your Bible are in our Bible, because without your 39 books, we couldn't have our Bible. It's all the same.
Would you say that's a place of common ground?
Yeah.
To start conversations?
Yeah, and that's how I said,
yeah.
We couldn't have our story without your story.
Amen.
And she went, wow, I didn't know you had our books in your Bible. And she was like, wow. I said, now Joshua and they end with 2nd Chronicles. It's a slightly different order. And I knew that. So she was impressed I knew that. And I said, we have ours in a slightly different order. We end with Malachi instead of 2nd Chronicles. It's a slightly different order, but they're all there. And she's like, wow. And she noticed I practiced my Hebrew. And she goes, you read Hebrew? I said, I work on it. She goes, I bet you read it better than I do. And I said, I don't know about that. But she was just like, wow, I didn't know any of that.
Get into Isaiah.
Yeah, well, the next time I see her, and you do realize they don't read Isaiah. They don't read the book of Daniel at all. At all.
Why is that, Amy?
Because it's prophecy. And they actually put Daniel in the literature books because they're afraid of Daniel. They don't consider Daniel prophecy. They move it over to like where Psalms and Ecclesiastes and all of those are.
Do they skip Isaiah 53 in the reading?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Isaiah 53, Psalm 2, Psalm 16, Psalm 22.
They skip them?
They skip them.
Well, yeah, I thought they only skipped 53.
No, they skip Micah 5. I don't know when you're preaching on Micah 5, but remember they skip it.
Am I supposed to be preaching on Micah 5? Oh no.
2026.
Okay.
Yeah, Bethlehem,
I mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Where would you say that the common ground is that we have with them, where we could really make some progress?
I don't know where you guys are politically. I'm not asking. But they are very pro-life. They love children. They are very affirming of family. So if you love your family, if you love children, if you are pro-life, and I'm not asking you to out yourself where you are politically, but if you love family, if you love your children, if you value, they do too.
I would think medical freedom.
Medical freedom.
what advice would you give to the guys in here? Because I know you reached out to the ladies and the moms, give them formula and stuff.
Yeah.
Not that we wouldn't do that, but it's harder for us to.
Women won't talk to guys.
That's my point. So where would be common ground for us guys to reach out to them?
But to the guys?
To go find the husbands in Walmart and strike up
Yeah.
conversations?
By the way, the guys will talk to me because I'm not Jewish. And by the way, my dog, who is the cutest dog in the world, even though dogs are not kosher, but I was telling Barbara earlier, dogs are not kosher. Somebody says, so I was at a church in Texas not too long ago, and they were like, "Well, you're not going to eat a dog," but they're not allowed to have dogs because they're not kosher. They're not considered a clean animal, but because they eat their poop.
This is very true.
Except I won't allow my dog to. But that's the bottom line reason. But have you ever seen an adult? But I have seen adult Hasidic men look at my dog and turn into an 8-year-old boy.
Oh, really?
And they're like, "Can I pet your dog?" And they will look around to make sure nobody's looking. And they're like, "Oh, I always wanted a dog." He has been the biggest conversation starter to let me have and when I tell them he's a rescue, and they're like, "What's a rescue?" Because they don't understand that concept. And I've explained what a rescue dog is. And it offers me a chance to talk about, he was, and it turns into a conversation about redemption. So just FYI.
The dog does help. When we let our dog out in the front yard, it's like the ice cream truck comes outside. All the kids from across the street and next door, they just come out. They just look. Because they can't cross the street. They can't come on, the Gentile property. But they just all come out. They stare, wave, Kenzie. And then, of course, the dog freaks out, barking viciously, my little puppy. But every time the dog goes, especially summertime, springtime, just like stare at the dog. Entertainment. This is my Netflix. Looking at the dog.
They can, no. They can have fish. But they cannot have like gerbils or no. Anything that might eat their feces. Yes.
So as a way of trying to establish common ground, would a Hasidic male be offended if, as we were explaining, we believe the Hebrew scriptures, that we consider ourselves adopted children?
Yes, they would be.
They would be offended. So don't go there.
Don't go there yet.
Don't go to the Galatians yet.
No. You have to start slow. You have to earn their trust.
And I remember when we first got lunch to talk about this, the Netflix documentary, what's it called?
One of Us.
One of Us. I actually, I was just like, I take Netflix documentaries with a grain of salt, any documentary. And I was like, is that true? And you said, yes.
Yes.
So for those who have Netflix who want to watch that documentary, if you haven't seen it, apparently it's 99% accurate.
Yeah.
When it comes to
One of Us.
One of Us.
And Ari, he's an atheist. He was addicted to drugs. I'm going to tell you the end of the story that's not in the documentary, because the documentary leaves you wondering what happened to Ari. Still watch the documentary, because he's an atheist now. He trusts in science. When I told him that science was now his God, he goes, "I don't believe in God." I said, "Yes, you do. You believe in the God of science. That's your God now." And he was like, "Yeah, I guess you're right." And I ended up giving him a Yiddish Bible, because I said, "Could you just read Matthew just to see how good the Yiddish is?" At least I got him to read Matthew. And, but, because he said the Yiddish was fine. And, but he was addicted to drugs. And he left his home in Borough Park. His mother told him, she said, I would rather you be, I got so mad at his mother. He goes, no, give my mom a break. She just doesn't understand. She goes, I would rather you be addicted to drugs and still a Satmar than clean and an atheist. I got so mad at his mother. I'm still mad at his mother.
I guess she was just mad at you.
Yeah. But she would rather him be addicted to drugs. And it wasn't marijuana, it was the shoot 'em up heroin kind. Yeah.
So that reminds me of someone I knew. I used to have a coworker. She must have been like a liberal Jew or
Yeah.
something on that end of the spectrum. And I was sharing Jesus with her once, and she just absolutely was like, no, that's another God. You cannot be a Jew and believe in Jesus.
Uh-huh.
And I paused and I said, can you be a Jew and an atheist?
Oh,
and
yeah.
She paused and she said, yes. So I find that to be an odd contradiction.
You can be a Buddhist and believe in, and a Jewish.
Right. But is that not true for Hasidim?
No, you can only be Hasidic. You can, by the way, there are more Jewish Buddhists in the world than Jewish believers in Jesus. You can be a Jubu.
Interesting. That kind of goes to what I was asking before about the ethnicity versus the religion. Like, is there
No, for
overlap?
Hasidim, it's both.
Yeah.
So what do we do?
You start by building a relationship, and this is true for your friend who's an atheist. You start by building a relationship with them. You start by building a friendship with them. You start by earning the right to share Jesus with them. And you start by saying, may I say the word Jesus to you? Because you have to know that I am a Christian and his name means something to you. I know what the name Jesus cost your family and in the past. But may I say the name Jesus to you? Or what would you prefer to say when I'm talking about my faith? Or can I just talk to you about my faith? And ask them how can I share how do you want me to talk about my faith? If I say something about my faith, how do you want me to say his name? Or can I just say his name? You got to earn that. I talked to a friend of mine today, and I'll say her name. Her name is Lauren. She's a Jewish believer in Jesus. She grew up not Hasidic, but very Orthodox. And then she became an atheist, and then she became a believer in Jesus. And she struggled. But you know what won her to faith? Was the persistent, constant kindness of Christians. And they earned the right to share Jesus with her. They earned the right. And we jokingly refer to the guy who actually ended up winning her. You know what I mean by that. And we call him Billy the Bible Thumper. Because he didn't beat her over the head with it. He was just consistent with it. And by the way, most Jewish people who become believers in Jesus are not Jewish, are not reached through Jews for Jesus or Chosen People Ministries or by Jewish believers. They're reached for Jesus by people like us. I'm not Jewish, I'm Scotch-Irish. They're not reached by Jewish people. They're reached by people like you and me who live their faith consistently, day in and day out. The reason why that lady who found out that I believe in Noah, the reason she wanted to talk to me was because I was consistent, day in and day out, and that rabbi got scared of me because they started talking about the church lady who's always there, who always cares, and who worries about the fact that we're getting into some scary Uber cars. Because I actually talked to them not about the Jewish Uber cars, but by some of those Uber cars that weren't safe. And I said, are you safe in those cars? Because if you're not safe, I'll drive you home. And I won't charge you. And they talked about that in the community, got back to the rabbi, and he said, you can't talk to that church lady anymore. Because you're talking about that church lady too much. And I don't want you to talk. And so he issued an edict against me because I was making too much of an impact. But that's what we have to do. So that just means I have to start all over again, even if it's one person at a time.
Your position in this ministry?
I'm the president.
Amy, is it northeastern?
I am it.
You're in the metro area?
Yeah.
Wow. So you know the Dove Hikins and the whole Jewish community.
Yeah, I'm it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I once had a very friendly argument, and it was friendly, with Ben-Zion Kravitz, who's the head of Jews for Judaism. It was a very friendly argument, and it was friendly. He couldn't shake my hand because I'm a woman and he's Orthodox. But we actually had a very cordial thank you for our discussion, after we were finished. Because I respected him and I called him Rabbi. So, and we've gone past 20 minutes, John. But
that's okay.
Okay. But I'm always respectful. And I'm always kind. And I always pray for them. Because most of the time when they've encountered Christianity, it hasn't been kind and respectful. And I'm going to tell a story because it's 8 o'clock and I want to respect y'all's time. A friend of mine, he was a rabbi in Romania. And remember, Hitler invaded Bulgaria, Romania, Yugoslavia, Hungary, all in late 1943, early 1944. They were all allies of Hitler. And by the way, if you've read the story of Elie Wiesel, if you've read Night and all of that, that was when Elie Wiesel's family was taken to Auschwitz and killed. But my friend's name was Joseph. And Joseph was a rabbi in his hometown in Transylvania, which is in Romania, which is not too far from where Elie Wiesel's family was. And he was the rabbi in his hometown. His mother probably sat right about where you are, Bet. And his wife, his children. One day the Nazis came, just like they came into all the other towns, rounded all the Jews up. And remember, Orthodox, Hasidic. And they took them to the train station to send them to Poland. They didn't take his mom because Joseph was, they found out who the rabbi was. They took his mom off the train and shot her in front of him. They took Joseph and all the Jews of his town to Poland. You know what happened to his wife and children. When Joseph when he came back from the camps in Poland, he went back to his town in Romania, went to the synagogue that was left, what was left of the synagogue. And he waited, and he waited, and he waited. Nobody came back except the rabbi. And that's when Joseph decided he no longer believed in God. Joseph ended up, ironically enough, moving to upstate New York. I'm not sure where this is. if anybody knows, you can tell me, becoming a professor at the Unification Theological Seminary. He became a professor for the Moonies in comparative religion. He married a Mooney. He didn't become a Mooney, though. And he ended up living in Manhattan. His second wife died of throat cancer. And I moved to New York City on January the 10th of 2000. I met Joseph on January the 11th of 2000. He was at a Bible study. He just showed up. I'm not exactly sure how he ended up there. And I was working for Chosen People at the time. And I don't know what it was. I don't know why he took a liking to me. I don't know why. And so I started teaching a women's Bible study for Chosen People. And Joseph would come to my women's Bible study. And somebody said, should he come? And I went, he's coming, shut up. And even during the summer, Joseph would wear long sleeves. You can imagine why. And every so often during the Bible study, Joseph would just kind of zone out like he was having a flashback. And I remember one time I touched Joseph's arm, and I just looked at him and I said, Joseph, I'm sorry. And he just started crying. Well, my dad died July of 2000. And so I went down to Texas for Daddy's funeral. And I came back and I brought Mama back with me so Mama could make some decisions. Because she was a pastor's wife. She lived in a parsonage. And so she had to move out of the parsonage. She had to, you understand that, don't you, Miss Debbie? And so she had to make decisions. Where am I going to live? What am I going to do? And all sorts of things. So I brought Mama back to New York. And I was upstairs in my office. And Marcy, who was the receptionist, called and said, Joseph's downstairs. He wants to see you. And I said, okay. So I came downstairs and Joseph was waiting for me. And he started crying for me, for my dad, for my mom. And I just hugged him. And I said, Joseph, Daddy's okay. He's in heaven. And Joseph, the atheist rabbi, said, oh, I know your father is in heaven. He has to be in heaven to have a daughter like you. And I said, Joseph, Daddy is in heaven. And he was a good man, but that's not why he's there. He goes, oh, I know. I said, no, Joseph, you started it, I finish it. And so I every time I saw him, I witnessed to him. And Joseph had kidney cancer. And so Joseph couldn't keep coming to my Bible study. And he stopped coming to other things. And the third night, we're starting Hanukkah Thursday night. But the third night of Hanukkah of 2001, so it was after 9/11, and 9/11 really impacted Joseph. It scared him. I went to his house. I took some people with me. His hospice nurse was there. And I had 2 hours with Joseph. And I begged him, because Joseph knew that Jesus was the Messiah. He knew it. But he couldn't do from here to here. And I begged him to believe in Jesus. Begged him. Up one side and down the other. And he looked at me. And he said, and he already had said, Amy, I don't want to go to heaven without my wife and children. And without my mother. He had already said that to me before. And I begged him to believe in Jesus. And he was crying, I was crying, my friends that were with me were crying. I think the hospice nurse was crying. And he said, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. January the 18th of 2002, Joseph died. And as far as I know, it wasn't okay. I've known 7 Holocaust survivors in my life. Joseph was my first. And Joseph is in hell, as far as I know. That's why we've got to share Jesus. But you know, I was the first Christian, the first Gentile, the first Christian to ever share Jesus with Joseph. Because all he knew of Christians before then was what he saw in those camps in Poland. And we can say, oh, those weren't Christians, and we know that. But from his perception, they were Catholic. They went to church. They got they got christened. They were good Catholics. You know, Hitler was a good Catholic, according to what they understood. I was the first Christian to actually show him the love of Jesus. He was 82 when that happened. It shouldn't take that long for the Jews who live around us to see that from us. Just saying.
Thanks for sharing that story, Amy, and everything for today. Not all the ministry stuff you do. So what I'm going to do, just because it is getting kind of late, I'm just going to say a prayer for Amy and us and all of our Jewish neighbors. And if you want to keep talking with Amy and stuff, feel free, no worries there. But let us pray to officially close our event here. Father, you are good, and your steadfast love endures forever. Thank you for my friend Amy here, who is, first of all, committed to you, who has put her trust and her faith in you. And thank you for the ministry that you have given her, that you strengthened her to do for your glory, God. We pray for all of the Hasidics and Jews and Gentiles that walk through Amy's life, God, that she can be a light to them, that she can share the good news with them, but by first showing friendship and love to them, that she can earn the right to be heard, that she earns the right to share the gospel with them. We pray that same prayer for us here in Orange County, that we probably have Hasidic neighbors, either next door or down the street, somewhere close to us, God, that is not by accident. You do nothing by accident, God. So, God, I pray that you give us encouragement, wisdom, guidance, and strength to reach out to those who are Hasidic, that we can show them the love of you. And we can do that just slowly but surely, step by step, that this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. And God, please lead us and direct us in our actions and our speech. And we pray for salvation for the Jewish people, for the Hasidic people, and for all the people in Orange County who do not know you. We pray this, Jesus, in your name. Amen. If you want updates about Amy's ministry, please email her to get on her email list. She has the website and everything. If you want to keep talking with her, she'll come off stage in a second. So thank you, Amy. Thank you. And that's it. Thank you, guys. I want to call it back.